Sports Card Podcast, where we tackle the hobby's hottest topics in depth to help you navigate the sports card landscape and enjoy the hobby we all love. Here's your host, John Newman.
All right, welcome to another edition of Hobby Quick Hits. Today's episode is going to be about exhibit cards, the oversized cards from the 20s and up. And if podcasting wasn't really around 20, 30 years ago, but had it been, and had I been doing a podcast, this would definitely not have been an episode that I would have done. Why? Because at that time in the hobby, between being a dealer and a store owner, I really disliked the exhibit cards. And it's funny how your tastes can change over years and time, right? Even outside the hobby, right? When you're a kid and you don't like certain foods, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, but then as you get older, you like them, right? And I can tell you there are tributes of cards that I feel the same way about or have similar stories. Exhibits being one of those. Mini cards, right? The smaller cards, wasn't a fan of those years ago. Kind of grew on me, and I like them now. And so your taste can change, your opinion can change, and my opinion has changed on exhibits. It's a great way. Exhibits are a great way to acquire some vintage cards without killing your budget necessarily. Now there are some expensive ones, and that have value. We're gonna this episode is really gonna focus on what exhibits are, how to tell the difference. There's a lot of fake ones out there. How to avoid those pratfalls and whatnot. So first off, when we talk about exhibits, let's go over what they are. They were from the Exhibit Supply Company in Chicago, and they were first created in 1921 in vending machines, penny vending machines at first, that were put in arcades or amusement parks. These were the first sports cards, if you will, released without any sort of advertisement attached to it, like tobacco or chewing gum or some sort of product affiliation. These were just the first real standalone, no trying to sell you another product sports card. And it wasn't just baseball. They did, actors and actresses and other sports and boxing. And so it wasn't just baseball, but the baseball one became their forte. And they're oversized cards, and so some people didn't like them for that reason. I think really too, when I talk about my time period where I didn't like them myself, I think one of the reasons was the size of them. At the time I didn't have top loaders for them. They didn't fit in your 9-pocket binders, your normal pages, and they were generally a nuisance. If you had them, they kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. They got beat up and banged around because of their size. So back in the 20, 30 years ago, I wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole. I really was sort of anti-exhibit, if you will. But as you get older and, your tastes change and you realize some of the backstory. I'm going to be honest with you, 20, 30 years ago, I didn't know all the stuff I know now. So let's talk about the different versions. We're going to, obviously, on this episode, focus just on the baseball line. All right, there are like actors and actresses, and things like that. We're going to focus just on the baseball variety of these. And so, if you look at Jefferson Burdick's card catalog, he has 5 classifications of these, and I'm going to go through them. All right. All starting with W461 were produced from 1921 to 1928 and from 1947 to 1966. The W462s were produced from 1939 to 1946. And these are ones called the salutations ones. These are the ones you'll see that say things such as greetings, cordially yours, best wishes. They have sort of like salutations on them. produced for an 8-year span, 39 to 46. The W463s are the quad ones. These were produced from 1929 to 1938, and these are the ones that have the 4 baseball players on one card. The 4, it's the quad box, I call them, but the 4 superstars usually on one card. The W464s was a 33-card Hall of Fame set produced in 1948. These are the ones that have the pillars on them. Looks like the old Greek pantheon pillars, say Hall of Fame, and feature 33 Hall of Famers. And the W465s, which is a 28, I believe it's 28 card set featuring the Pacific Coast League players from 1928. Not a lot of stars from this version, but their cards are hard to find, making them valuable. But unfortunately, not a lot of star power. So there's the different varieties. Now, there are some even additional variations inside of those. Some cards, most cards were blank backs, but every once in a while you had some that would have red stats on the back. And a lot of people think those ones that have like red stats on the back, red printed stats on the back, are fake, because most don't have red stats on the back. And that's actually not true. However, what is true is there are a lot of fakes of exhibits. You got to be real careful. The genuine exhibit cards have a sort of that vintage old cream color back. You know what you see when you look through an old family picture album from the 30s and 40s, and the pictures have that cream back. It has the cream back. The fakes, the reprints, have the standard gray back, or some are even pure white. And it's hard to explain, but if you had a real one and a fake one next to each other, it's very, very apparent. One tip, as someone who's bought a lot of these, if you ever buy them online, I know this sounds terrible to say, try not to buy them where the seller does not show the pictures of the back. I can tell you, 9 times out of 10, maybe not that high, 8 times out of 10, when someone doesn't show the backs of the exhibit cards they're listing, they're not the genuine article. They're reprints from much later years. And don't be afraid to ask a seller. And so there's been times on some buy it now auctions of exhibit cards, in the ad itself, it's coming across as the real McCoy genuine article. And I asked the seller, can I see pictures of the backs of this? I'm interested. I probably will buy them, but I need to see the pictures of the back. And sometimes if they send the pictures of the back, they're the gray backs or the pure white backs, and I tell them, this is not a genuine exhibit. This is a reprint, Or sometimes they refuse to send me the picture. No, I can't, or not right now, right? And I won't buy them, because most likely not the genuine article. So make a habit, if you're buying them online and not in person, to definitely buy them only when you can see the backs, and if you get them and they're not that genuine article, obviously you're going to have to file a dispute and a return. Be careful. There are a lot of fakes out there. I bought a 2-card lot once of Pee Wee Reese. They were both Pee Wees, and from the Brooklyn Dodgers, and I got both of them. One was the genuine article, and one was a reprint. And if you see them, I'll have to post. I'll try to post on my social media. If you see them next to each other, flipped, with the backs, it's very apparent they're different from one another. And when I bought them as 2 genuine ones, and then I messaged the seller like, "Hey man, one of these is real, the other one's not." And I thought they were both real. I paid for 2 real ones. He's like, "Well, I'll stick up for him. I'm not sure he realized. I think he got sort of duped on one of them." And he goes, "Well, what would you like?" And I'm like, listen, I got a pretty good deal on them, but obviously I thought I was getting two real ones. If you take $8-9 off or refund $8-9 off, we're good. Or I can just send them both back and cancel the whole transaction. So he refunded like $8 or $9 back, which was a decent amount of what I paid. And I have a fake one that not genuine. I don't know what I'll do with it. Just kind of in the pile there, but definitely not going to be listed on any site as the real McCoy. So be careful. There are a lot of fakes. Another, those Hall of Fame ones, the W464s are famous for a lot of fake ones with the clean backs on them. So be careful. The backs are usually the first telltale to sign that they're not the genuine article. Again, remember they are bigger size card. They're postcard size. They do great. I mean, PSA, SGC will grade them. These things go for a decent amount, especially in nice condition. Because they're oversized, they don't travel well. They get beat up, and so some of the higher grade versions of these do bring some decent money. The Jackie Robinsons of this ilk bring considerable amount of money. Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, some of your obvious big name players are going to bring a decent amount of coin. Now, however, when you compare them to the tops of that era and the Bowman cards of that era, they're actually a great affordable way to add some star power to your vintage collection. And so recently, over the last probably year and a half, I really started to focus more on vintage again as I saw some market trends and saw what some of the new stuff was doing that I honestly myself couldn't even justify. I really pivoted towards vintage, and I did something I never thought I would do, right? That younger version of me couldn't stand exhibit cards. I looked at them. I started learning more about them, thinking about them. Think about this, too. Something that popped into my mind is, they're blank backs, they're no stats, right? People love those vintage 40s, 50s, 60s cards. They love to look at the backs, right, with the cartoons, telling a little personal note about the player, the stats, see how the player, what was their best years. Well, a lot of people didn't like exhibits even back then just because they didn't have a lot of information on them. They were just sort of photographs. And so they weren't, they were popular because they were cheap. They were come out of penny machines, then later, nickel machines as time went on. But a lot of these probably got thrown out or beat up. They definitely got beat up because they don't, being oversized, they definitely bang around, and they didn't have, the supplies we have. We're spoiled today with the supplies we have. We didn't have that stuff back then like we do now. And so these things took a beating. Many of them got thrown out. Many people thought they were fakes just because there was nothing on the back. They just thought they were sort of like homemade cards, if you will. So a lot of these got destroyed and thrown out. So yeah, they're not like super short prints or anything like that. They're available for if you're in the market for them, but I don't think there's as many as maybe some people think there is. And if you're into grading, there's great opportunities to get some deals on auction sites, auction blocks, auction houses, especially in lot form. I've got some now that are definitely gradable condition that I'm just waiting to submit. Let's just say to the market changes. So they're a great affordable way to add to your vintage star power. I did a 360 on them. They make pocket pages that fit these things. They make top loaders that fit these things. So they're more protectable, if you will. Plenty of star power in most of these. Again, you can buy lots on some auction houses, eBay. It's a good way to get a quantity of them for a decent price. And so if you're a person that knew about exhibits and like me, kind of slept on them or just turned the page or swiped right or whatever the expression is when you bypass somebody, take a relook at them, if you will. To give them another shot. if I can kind of change my mind and do a 180 on them, I think anyone can, because I wanted nothing to do with these things. I used to have them come in my store. People bring them in my store all the time for sale, and I'm like, I didn't even pick them up. I'm like, I don't have any interest in the exhibits. They take too much space up in my showcases. There's nothing on the backs. It's hard to tell what year they are. Someone asked me, I don't know. And I mean, it is tricky to tell what year they are. Some of the print, like the Made in USA, is different font or different font sizes. You can narrow it down to a specific year. But again, the backs are the key component to tell the real ones from the not real ones. And but again, I kind of did a 180, and I think that's sort of the underlying message in this episode, is that we can pivot, we can change our mind. And so what we didn't like 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, even last year ago, we can have a change of heart. And it's our business, right? We're the CEO of our own collecting company, and if we want to change course, change strategy, we can. And I've done that very thing when it comes to exhibits. And so take a relook at them, even if you sort of punted on them in the past. And it's if you, let's say you don't want to do baseball, you want to do some of that I've been buying some boxing ones as well. I've been getting into the boxing, early vintage boxing stuff, and I've gotten some of the exhibit boxing stuff as well. So there's actresses, like I said, and plenty of different options if that's the route you want to go. So we're going to give out our social medias, and we're going to call it an episode, and we'll see you next time on Hobby Quick Hits. Hey folks, thanks for listening to the show. Wanted to give out our social media links where you can follow the show even when you're not listening to it. On Twitter, we are at Hits Hobby, HITSHOBBY. On Instagram, we are at Hobby Quick Hits Podcast, all one word. Our website is www.sportscardnation.net. Look for the link to Hobby Quick Hits. You'll find us there. And you can always text us on our text line, area code 315-491-0239.
In case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.